Imagine walking into a high-end watch store with money to spend, only to be told the model you want is sold out and has a waiting list years long. If you try to buy it secondhand, the price might be double or triple the official retail price. This sounds unbelievable, but it's the reality in today's watch market. Sports watches, sturdy timepieces originally made for diving, racing, and other activities have become so sought after that they've eventually redefined luxury. In this video, we'll discover how sport watches evolved from practical tools to the ultimate status symbols, and why their demand and resale prices have skyrocketed in the recent years. A sport watch is a wristwatch designed for active use. Unlike delicate dress watches, sport watches are built to be tough and functional. They often have features meant for specific tasks, for example, a rotating bezel to time dives on a dive watch, or a chronograph function to time lapse in a race. Sport watches usually come with metal or rubber straps instead of fancy leather. They were created for explorers, athletes, and adventurers. Think of a diver exploring the ocean depths or a pilot navigating the skies. Over time, these robust designs caught on with the public. People began wearing sport watches not just for utility, but as fashion and lifestyle statements. Some early famous sport watches include the Rolex Submariner and the Rolex Daytona. These watches were originally marketed as tools, and the Submariner was advertised with divers and the Daytona was advertised with race car drivers. They were built to withstand water pressure or help measure speed, but even from the beginning, brands like Rolex gave their sport models a touch of style and prestige. Many buyers loved that these watches were both practical and prestigious. Little did anyone know that in the decades to come, sport watches would move on from the realm of utility to become the center of the luxury watch world itself. In the mid-20th century, luxury watches were typically elegant dress watches, often slim, made of gold, and worn with suits at formal events. In contrast, sport watches were seen as rugged instruments for specific jobs. For example, when the Rolex Submariner debuted in 1953, it was marketed to scuba divers, not business executives. The Rolex GMT Master, introduced in 1954, was aimed at pilots to track multiple time zones. These early sport watches were respected for their engineering, but they weren't yet considered ultra-luxury items. However, Rolex sport models did gain popularity as status symbols over time. By the 1980s, seeing a Rolex Submariner or GMT on someone's wrist became a sign of success, even if the watch was made of stainless steel rather than gold. James Bond wore a Rolex Submariner in early films, linking sport watches with suave style. Celebrities and world leaders started to be spotted with sporty Rolexes, gradually blurring the line between a tool watch and a dress accessory. A steel watch could hint that the wearer was both adventurous and affluent. Still, for many years, the flashiest displays of wealth in watches were typically gold dress watches or gem-studded pieces. That began to change in the 1970s, when a new idea emerged: a sport watch that was luxurious from the start. The year 1972 was a turning point. The Swiss watch industry was facing the quartz crisis, and cheap quartz battery watches from Japan were threatening traditional mechanical watches. In response, a bold idea was born at Audemars Piguet. They asked famed designer Gerald Genta to create something totally new: a high-end watch made of stainless steel. The result was the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, released in April of 1972. This watch looked and felt like a sport watch. It was steel, rugged, with a distinctive octagon bezel secured by visible screws. But unlike other steel watches, it was priced like a top luxury item. In fact, when it debuted, the Royal Oak cost 3,300 Swiss francs, at a time when the most expensive steel watch was around 850 francs. It was even costlier than many gold watches, and one AP catalog from 1972 shows a gold model selling for 2,990 francs, cheaper than the stainless steel Royal Oak. This pricing strategy was shocking and controversial. Imagine a steel watch that cost as much as a small car at the time, but Audemars Piguet didn't apologize for the price. They embraced it. Following AP's success, other brands quickly joined the new trend. In 1976, Patek Phillippe hired the same designer Gerald Genta to create their own luxury sport watch. He designed the Patek Philippe Nautilus, another steel watch with a unique shape inspired by a ship's porthole. Patek famously advertised it with the slogan, "One of the world's costliest watches is made of steel." This was a bold statement in the 1970s, but it was true. The Nautilus was very expensive for its time, signaling that it was a prestige object. not just a casual stopwatch. Just like the Royal Oak, the Nautilus initially raised eyebrows but eventually became a huge hit. Its mix of sporty toughness and elegant design made it one of the world's most sought-after timepieces. Other brands introduced similar high-end sports models. For example, Vacheron Constantine's Overseas derived from a 1977 model called the 222, but Rolex, interestingly, didn't need to invent a new model. Their existing sport watches like the Submariner and Daytona naturally rode the wave of popularity. By the late 20th century, wearing a steel Rolex or an AP Royal Oak or Patek Nautilus was firmly established as a signal of taste and wealth. These watches were still functional for sports or daily wear, but more importantly, they were conversation pieces and status markers. As we entered the 21st century, a few sport watches emerged as the undisputed stars of the luxury watch world. Let's take a quick look at the key players. Rolex. The brand's sports models are legendary. The Rolex Submariner, Daytona, GMT Master 2, and others became so popular that some have years-long waitlists at stores. Rolex carefully maintains quality and limits production of its most popular models, which keeps demand really high. For example, the Submariner has been continuously produced since the 1950s, but if you walk into a Rolex dealer today, you likely won't find one in stock. It's that popular. The same is true for models like the Daytona. In fact, the Rolex Daytona was once a slow seller in the 1960s, but today it's one of the most coveted watches, partly thanks to celebrity heritage, and an analysis of Rolex's sales over 15 years shows just how much the brand's value has grown. The average Rolex price increased by over 550% from 2010 to 2025. Jumping from around $2,000 to about $13,400. This astounding rise underlines how Rolex sports watches have transformed into hard assets that people are willing to pay a premium for. Another big brand is Patek Phillippe and Patek's Nautilus, especially in the basic steel model, reference 5711, became a holy grail watch for collectors in the 2010s. Its popularity exploded to the point that in 2021, Patek Philippe made a surprising decision. They discontinued the Nautilus 5711 to preserve its exclusivity. Prices for used Nautilus watches spiked even higher after discontinuation, and in 2015, a Nautilus 5711 could be bought for around $25,000. But by early 2024, the same watch was trading for over $134,000. That's more than 5 times its price in less than a decade. There was even a special edition Nautilus with a turquoise blue dial made in partnership with Tiffany & Co. One of those rare pieces sold for an all-in price of $6.5 million at auction. An almost unbelievable sum for a steel sports watch. Patek Philippe's other sport model, the Aquanaut, also saw huge demand. Patek produces only about 65 to 70,000 watches per year in total, and only a small fraction of those are Nautilus models. This limited supply means most people can't get one at retail, and authorized dealers often tell customers to wait 8 years or more for a Nautilus. Because of this, many turn to secondary sellers and pay well above the official retail price to get one immediately. Patek sport watches, which was once a daring idea, are now some of the priciest and hardest to get watches in the world. But AP's Royal Oak continues to be immensely popular, especially the classic jumbo editions that stick close to the original 1972 design. AP produces around 50,000 watches per year, which is not a lot considering global demand, but Royal Oaks and steel often sell for far above their retail prices on the open market. One notable example is the Royal Oak Jumbo, reference 15202, the discontinued model very similar to the 1972 original. Its last known retail price was about $22,000, but on the secondary market, these jumbos have sold for $80,000 to $100,000 or more. This is a perfect case of iconic design and low supply equals huge premium. Across the board, popular steel Royal Oaks regularly trade for 50% to 150% above retail price. AP has also introduced many variations, different sizes, gold versions, skeletonized dials, etc. But it's the core steel sport models that drive the legacy. During the pandemic boom, Audemars Piguet watches as a brand saw the highest average price appreciation among all major watchmakers. Secondary prices for AP went up about 65% from 2019 to 2024, which is outpacing even Rolex and Patek in that period. But also in the 2020 pandemic, a watch brand named Richard Mille, known for sport watches that you probably know, has boomed in prices since that year. Many athletes and celebrities even wear their watches as a luxury timepiece, even though it's literally a sport watch. But why did sport watches really take over? To simply put it, demand far exceeds supply for these iconic watches. Companies like Patek Phillippe and Audemars Piguet make relatively few of their sports models, and even Rolex, which makes more, deliberately limits the supply of certain models. This scarcity creates exclusivity, and people feel special if they can get one. It's basic economics. When a product is hard to get, it becomes more desirable. As one analysis noted, popular steel sports models selling way above retail isn't just hype. It's basic supply and demand when production is limited. Also, luxury sport watches have proven to hold their value or appreciate over time. This is a big shift. Traditionally, most luxury goods lose value after purchase, but many Rolex, Patek, or AP sport watches have increased in price over the years. This attracted people who see them as investments and not just accessories. In fact, over a recent 10-year period, luxury watches as an asset class went up significantly in value and even outpaced things like classic cars and art in some cases. But all of these changes have effectively redefined luxury in the context of watches. Because it used to be that when someone said luxury watch, one might picture a slim gold watch on a leather strap peeking from under a suit cuff at a Met Gala. Today, just as likely, the image of luxury is a stainless steel Rolex Submariner on someone's wrist at a nice restaurant, or an AP Royal Oak sticking out from a casual shirt at a tech CEO's presentation. Sport watches have replaced the traditional markers of luxury for a lot of people, because a generation ago, a man might prove his success by buying a luxury car or a suit. Now, a fine watch, particularly one of these sought-after sport models, has become a more accessible status symbol. You carry it with you and it subtly signals your taste and status without needing a garage or a special occasion. So, have sport watches completely took over the luxury watch industry? In a metaphorical sense, it has become the face of luxury for a lot of people. If you flip through lifestyles, magazines, or watch Instagram feeds of the rich and famous, you'll notice the watch flex has become as prominent as the car or the mansion. A steel watch peeking from under a cuff can sometimes say more than a flashy logo on a handbag or a sports car in the driveway. One interesting trend to note, after the peak of the frenzy in 2022, the market cooled slightly and some people started exploring other types of watches, like classic dress watches or lesser known brands, as a reaction to the overheated hype watches. Nonetheless, the core icons, Daytona, Nautilus, Royal Oak, and more, remain highly valued. Even if prices dip occasionally, these models have established a baseline of prestige that keeps them on top. They're now taken into pop culture, investment discussions, and fashion, a crossover few luxury items actually achieve. Sport watches have had a remarkable journey, and they started as sturdy tools for specific tasks decades ago, and over time, they transformed into symbols of style and success. And in recent years, they became the hottest commodities in the luxury market, but it's a story of how our idea of luxury can change. Today, a stainless steel watch can be as coveted as a piece of gold jewelry, or even more so. But what comes next? Will this trend continue, or will there be a return to other expressions of luxury? It's really hard to predict the future, and the watch market, like any other market, can have ups and downs. Some experts think the frenzy will stabilize, with prices finding a more sustainable level, and others believe the next generation might value things different, perhaps moving to smartwatches or other status symbols. But however, the legacy of this era is clear. Sport watches have proven that luxury is not about the material, but about desirability and meaning. These watches combine history, functionality, and exclusivity in a way that captured the world's imagination. So if you, yes you, personally enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And comment down below your thoughts on sport watches, as I do really like them myself. As well as YouTube thinks you're gonna like the video that's gonna pop up, so trust me, click on it, you will not regret it. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.